starting with the Daily Wire article, we're going to start with this one right here, which is Netanyahu slams Chuck Schumer for meddling in Israelis' elections. He's opposing the people of Israel. Now, I completely agree with what Netanyahu is doing, and the reason why a lot of people are attacking him is because of the fact that they do not like what Israel is doing in the war with Hamas. Now, Hamas right now is labeled, or should be labeled, because they were taken off as soon as Joe Biden came into office, was labeled as a terrorist regime and a terrorist organization by the Trump administration, which was a true statement. Hamas is a terrorist regime and loves to cause terror. That's why, when my Boston accent is coming out here, that's exactly why they took every single thing, humanitarian aid that the West sends their way, and they turn that very thing into missiles and attack other countries. That's exactly what they do here. That's exactly why they had their airport shut down, because they use that airport to use planes and crash it into buildings abroad, out of their country. So, with that being said, a lot of people get the confusion that in Israel, just Bibi Netanyahu is the one making the decisions over at the military side, but that's not the case. If you were to look at any fact whatsoever, you can see that there's a board of directors, even in America. This is the same exact situation here. So, in the small chance of war happening, which it did happen, a war did happen in Israel, there is a war cabinet that happens. Now, in the war cabinet, you have a nonpartisan group of officials that are your opposition leaders and your team on the board of directors, choosing what to do and what not to do to better the country in general. Because your opposition leader is good for the opposition, obviously, and you are good for yourself because you're the prime minister, you're the leader of the country, of course. Now, at the same exact time, you go over all of the things that you should be doing, and you'll come to a consensus on this. And if you don't come to a consensus on it, then you don't do the very thing. That's the same exact thing in America. When there's a war, Joe Biden doesn't just ask Joe Biden what he wants to do. He asks a war cabinet. That's why I feel a little bit better at night knowing that just Joe Biden is not in charge, because he has a war cabinet that he can ask in a time of war, and then they'll help him decide on what not to do and what to do. And that's the best thing about these free countries, is that you have a board of directors that are not just with you, but with your opposition, to make sure that they're not just being yes men to whatever you want to do. That's very, very important here. Now, moving with the article, Israeli Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu slammed Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, Democrat from New York, this week after Schumer tried to meddle in Israelis' elections last week. Netanyahu made remarks during a Sunday interview with CNN's Dana Bash on the State of the Union in response to Schumer calling out Netanyahu's ouster. Quote, "I think that what he said is totally inappropriate." Netanyahu said, quote, "It's inappropriate to go to a sister democracy and try to replace the elected leadership there. That's something that Israel and the Israeli public does on its own, and we're not a banana republic. I think the only government that we should be working on to bring down is now the terrorist tyranny in Gaza, the Hamas tyranny that has murdered over 1,000 Israelis, including some dozens of Americans, and is holding Americans and Israelis hostage. That's what we should be focused on," he continued. And as far as what the Senator Schumer said, the majority of Israelis support our governments. 82% of the Americans support Israel instead of Hamas, but the majority of Israelis support the policies that we are heading and we are leading. Go into Rafah, destroy the remaining Hamas terrorist batons, make sure that we don't put into Gaza instead of Hamas, the Palestinian Authority that educates their children towards terrorism and anti-Helium of Israel. An enormous majority here, including 99 Knesset members to 9, oppose the idea of ramming down the Palestinian state down our throats. Netanyahu said, "The majority of Israelis support the policies of the government, and it's not fringe government. It represents the policies supported by the majority of the people. If Senate Schumer opposes these policies, he's not opposing me. He's opposing the people of Israel." And I can see what he's coming from, and I can see exactly the point that he's trying to make here, because like I said, if Israeli conducts elections even more often or at the same exact time as America does, at least once a year, then you can see that when they go to the people and ask who they want to be in charge and what they want to be done, then you can actually sit here and start saying, okay, so now this isn't just a tyranny. This isn't like Russia, where there's only one person in charge and there's 87% approval rating, which, by the way, Whoa, whoa, whoa. Stop your cars if you are driving. Sit down if you're standing. If you need to, just take a sip of water because this is like breaking news here, right? Putin won the election in Russia. Wow, okay. That's very, very So it's not like Russia whatsoever. It's not like Bibi Netanyahu had no one else running against him. He did. Unlike in Russia, where Putin only has himself running, and if anybody like Navalny likes to run against him, then he just magically just passes away after being sentenced to prison for at least his whole entire life. Now that's a whole entire different conversation, and a lot of people disagree with that for some strange reason, which I don't get why you disagree with the statement of don't lock up your political opponents if you want to have the persona of having a free and just election in a democracy. But that's a different conversation entirely.